Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Once again, this is Dr. Soul Brother here with another remedy to help cure you of your ills. I want to share some things with you. As you know, I mentioned that I had to go out of town for I had a death in my family. My grandmother's younger cousin was 94 years old. I went to the service and paid my respects. And while there, this is in the state of Louisiana, and I went there. This is my first time there in about 8 years maybe, and it was good to see family I hadn't seen since that time. And I also got a chance to, how can I say, be introduced to some relatives I had never met before. So that was very positive. Of course, it's always a sad occasion when you go to bury a loved one. But as is usually the case, you get to experience what would be referred to as a mini family reunion of sorts. But I don't want to dwell too much on that part. I want to say this to the family. Those of you who have roots here in the United States, um, particularly in the South, which most of us as black folks, no matter what part of the country we're from, um, we have Southern roots, whether it's parents, grandparents, or whomever. Um, Here's the thing. And of course, I've been to the South several times. I used to live in the South at some point in my life. But I think it's important to note this. If you have not traveled to the South, I would encourage you to do that. I would encourage you also to not reduce the South to a bunch of rednecks and crackers and that sort of thing. Because when you do that, you're actually, whether you realize it or not, you're disrespecting your culture to just reduce the South to a bunch of rednecks, and that's a problem. Um, while there, I got a chance to see another relative I hadn't seen since the last time I was down there, and that was my grandmother's cousin, who is 100 years old. That's right, 100. And she has a sister who's 102. Now I didn't see her because she lives in another state. But my point is, at least that side of the family, there's a bunch of long livers, and that's encouraging. That's good. But not only is she 100, this is a lady who has a memory that's impeccable, an impeccable memory, and took me all the way back to the slave plantation, meaning that her great no, her grandfather was a slave on the plantation down there in South Louisiana. And so she talked about that. And of course, she wasn't, she's born post slavery, but she was passing down to me some of the oral history that had been passed down to her. And for looking at this lady who's 100, and for her to recall, I mean, for her to take me all the way back to the plantation area, that's just remarkable. It really is. Um, when you're in the South, of course, you're reminded of the Southern hospitality that you receive, which is what I got while down there. And you know, anybody who's been there, they don't mind feeding you, which is I was well fed. All right. The other thing is I got a chance to see the sugar cane field. Again, this is South Louisiana, so I got a chance to see that. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to take a picture of it because when I was riding in the car with one of my cousins, we just kept rolling. We didn't stop and pull over and all of that. Maybe the next time around, God willing, I'll get a chance to do that because I believe in the preservation of our history. I really do. We should take photographs. We should record our elders who are still around while they still have their faculties, all that kind of stuff. Because if you don't, I mean, think about it. Even though this was not my reason for going down there, as I mentioned, I went down there to bury um, one of my elder relatives. But here's the thing: while down there, if I hadn't had the presence of mind to record my elder cousin who's 100 years old, that would have been a crime, and that would have been something. I mean, every day could be when somebody's up in age like that. Every day could be their last. So you have to take advantage of the time that you have because we don't know the hour. So I would encourage everybody under the sound of my voice right now. You got people in your family, talk to them, talk to them. Drill their brains like you're drilling for oil. It's important. Get as much information as you can. Kind of ask some questions. What was it like, during your growing up, and how would you compare yesteryear to today? And this is my other thing. Don't reduce the South to uh, racism. That's a part of the history, to be sure. But see, when you do that, it's almost like you're suggesting racism was unique there and no place else. And we know that is fundamentally false. That's false right there. Okay. Um, go back to the South and visit your kinfolk. Spend time with them, whether it's the elders in your family, whether it's the folks who are your contemporaries. Kick it with them. Uh, exchange information if you can. You run into somebody who doesn't seem to have that kind of interest, or they seem indifferent. Okay, go on to the next one. You'll find somebody, believe me, even if it's one person. And if you got that one person, hold on to them for dear life. Okay? Um, talk to the oldest person in your family if you can. Okay? And get as much information as you can as possible. We got to come out of this um, uh, being shamed and guilty. Gone are the days. This is Dr. Soul Brother saying straight up, gone are the days of shaming and guilting us about our roots in America. Nobody has a right to do that, whether you are a person who's born and raised here, got roots here, or a foreign person. You don't have a right, no right at all, to try to shame and guilt black folks in America for our roots here in these United States. It's these same roots that opened the gate for others to want to come to America for a better life from elsewhere. It's those same roots that had an impact and effect on a positive tip when it came to music and the arts. Well, that's part of the arts, but music and other parts of the arts. Okay. It's that same roots that people think about this. Back in the day, you had black folk in the Caribbean, Trinidad, Jamaica in particular, who had been influenced by Fats Domino. Well, when you listen to Fats Domino's music, listen to it carefully. Songs like I'm Walking and a bunch of others, you can hear that New Orleans flavor. Well, that's the kind of stuff they gravitate toward. That comes from you got to get to the root, okay? Uh, and the root is the South. The way we talk, to some extent. I mean, somebody um, hearing somebody, let's say, um, okay, example, Snoop Dogg um, grew up on the West Coast. But if you listen carefully, you can hear certain words he pronounced. You can hear that Southern influence. Okay, um, uh, a bunch of other people. I can't think of their names right now. You know, you can hear that when they talk. If you listen to somebody like Huey P. Newton. Now Huey P. Newton was born in Louisiana, but he grew up in Oakland. But if you listen carefully, you can hear that influence of you know, the 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 Southern household that he grew up in. You know, so that's those kind of things are important. Your language is part of your culture. Your the food that you eat, the certain terminologies that you use, maybe the dances that you do, the style of music that you play and gravitate to. That's all part of the culture. All part of the culture. Okay. I mean, I don't want this to be a show on Louisiana, but I'm just using Louisiana as a point to make my point. Um, and all of because I mean, the Southern hospitality that's across the South. Period. Okay. And um, I'm telling you. Being down there, whether it's Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, etc., but I'm talking about Louisiana because this is where I was. Being down there, it's a different energy. It really is. It's a different energy. And that's the kind of thing that we have to get uh, tapped into. Okay. Um, and also go to the graves of those who were of in your families who were buried. I got a chance to see while at the cemetery burying our elder cousin. I got a chance to see where there were other family members who were buried in that same cemetery. Okay, all of that's important. Um, this thing about the food, I mean, what we call soul food, is comes from the South. There's no getting around that. No getting around that at all. And by the way, um, I plan to do a show ASAP on soul food. And I would love to get your all's take on this and in the comments section. In fact, oh, by the way, please, if anybody can help me on how to get this hooked up where people can hop on and talk to me live, that would be great because I mean, doing this pre-recorded, all that's well and good, but I want to be able to engage folk, and I want people to engage me. So if anybody in the comments section can help me to show me how I can get that going, I'd I greatly appreciate it. I really would. But um, you all don't realize this, but I'm looking at a photograph right now of it was a elder in my family who's in a rocking chair. And I remember seeing this photograph of her when I was a young boy back in the day, at a relative's house down south. And it's amazing. I'm looking at her and I know, you know, her face shows that she lived the kind of life that she lived. And she's not smiling. And again, that's a part of our history, man. That's a part of who and what we are. So we own that. I own it. I take ownership, but then I take pride in owning that. Okay, you talking about your DNA. You're talking about all of those things that shape and mold us as individuals and as a people collectively. You know, but gone. I want this to be clear. Gone are the days of shaming and guilting us about our roots here in these United States. We are done with that, and we need to stay on course. Stay on course in terms of the preservation, the love, and the embracing of those things that are part of our culture in these United States. That I don't think that can be stressed enough. I really don't. That's important. um, when you go down south, go to the library, go to the archives, get your family names. Again, talk to those in the family who have an interest. It'd be great if you talk to a genealogist. Wherever your people come out of down south, talk to it. Find a good black genealogist, um, or any other genealogist, and get you. You watch shows like Who Do You Think You Are? What's the other one? Finding your roots with Henry Louis Gates and folk like that. Um, that kind of stuff should inspire people to say, you know what, let me look into my family history. Please do that. You'd be amazed the kind of information that you can get. And not only that, photographs. Find out from family members if there are photographs in the family of family members. Um, all of that. Though all of those things are important. And I would also encourage you to do two things. One, make copies of photographs of family members and pass them along in case one, because things happen, fires happen, floods happen, or people just get careless and lose things. Um, if you all have more than one copy of a photograph or photographs of family members, that's great. The other thing is people, encourage y'all to have family reunions. You know why we as black folks have family reunions? It goes back to slavery. Remember now, on the plantation, you were sold. I mean, not everybody was sold, but a lot of people were sold from one plant. I was talking to uh, my grandmother's elder cousin, the one who's 100. talking about how her grandfather um, was a slave on the plantation. He had a brother. He was beaten, and the brother was sold. I mean, this is some heavy stuff. It really is. So, um, talk to the people in family. Encourage. If you have family who, let's say, haven't had family reunions in a while, restart that up. Or if you've never had one, be the first to start it. Get a committee together and say, look, it's gonna take us about a year. This one is in charge of the shirts. This one's in charge of that. This one's in charge of this, etc. And get that going because you only live once. And family reunions of all the different groups, family reunions are big in our culture. And there's a reason why. Because again, on the plantation, um, you were forced to be. You were. Where do you think all that stuff about play cousin, play auntie, play uncle, play brother, play sister? All of that comes from that. That's unique to our culture. Unique. We are a unique people. We really are. And so, this stupid notion that black folks in America don't have a culture, and by the way, we need to be real clear about something. You have these foreigners, black foreigners, who are saying that black people in America don't have a culture, and that's jacked up. However, you need to, talking about black folks in America, black Americans, you need to erect a mirror and do a self or personal inventory because the reality is this. This the first ones saying that we didn't have a culture were black Americans themselves. That's a fact. I'm old enough to remember this. Now, um, you may have these foreigners saying this now, but they were laying in the cut and they heard you. And that's the reality of the situation. Okay? So, um, get as much use your cell phones to record elders in the family like I did. I have an hour and 5 minute interview. I wish it could have been longer, but with my elder, and she was she was she was just going, you know. So, but no, um, we have got to reclaim and preserve and embrace our history and culture in these United States. I encourage all of us to take pride in our Black American roots in America. That is critical. And once we do that, trust and believe things will go in a different direction. Things will go in a positive direction. They will. That's how that works. It's fine to teach Black pride. That's important. But when you don't take pride in your ethnicity, your history, and culture, but specifically your ethnicity, we will have a problem. And this is why, quiet as it's kept, we've been having problems because unfortunately and regrettably, not enough of us have immersed ourselves in pride in our ethnicity. If anybody is familiar with Tony Brown's journal, that was very popular back in the day on PBS, you can probably see a few episodes on YouTube. Mr. Tony Brown. Yes, his show was about Black Pride. His show started off Black Journal, then it morphed into Tony Brown's Journal. But here's the point. Um, if you look at any of his shows from, let's say, back in the 80s and 90s and whatnot, or even 70s, uh, it was clear that Mr. Brown took pride and encouraged us as a people to take pride in our ethnicity, our history, and our culture in this country. One of the great things about his show was that um, he was his show represents unapologetic pride in our ethnicity, and for that, he and others like him should be saluted. And it should be noted this also, and I'll say this in closing. You had two people, Gil Noble and William Graves. Both of them did similar work as Mr. Tony Brown. What distinguishes William Graves and Gil Noble from Tony Brown is this: Gil Noble and William Graves, unlike Mr. Brown, didn't have roots here. Okay, you couldn't tell, but they were very in their work. They were very respectful of Black American history and culture. They were American born and raised, but both of them had island roots. Their parents were from the Caribbean. So we got to salute folks like that. But unfortunately, we're in a space now where you have folk who are foreign, who are black, who are not respecting Black American culture. And one of the reasons for this, again, I'm not making excuses, I'm not trying to defend, but one of the reasons for this is because for too long now, for too long, Black Americans with roots here have been running off at the mouth, uh, not respecting Black American culture, as well as feeling a sense of inferiority as it relates to Africans and Caribbean Black folk. That is a problem and that needs to end. So, again, gone are the days of shaming and guilting us about our roots here in America. You cannot shame and guilt me of nothing, okay? Because I know that collectively, our history stands on the hill. It stands on a hill. It's the shining light on the hill. It is. So, um, uh, the fact of the matter, if other people who come from wherever they come from can take pride in their ethnicity, why can't you? Why shouldn't you? And you should and need to every day that you are on this earth breathing. And you share that type of forward that with your own children and other family members. When you have family reunions, go into that. Go into that. Okay. So again, I would encourage you travel down south, spend time with the folk. I promise you, you're gonna see what I saw. You're gonna feel what I felt. I'm telling you, the day before I left to come back home, I said to myself, I didn't express this to anybody else, but I said to myself, man, I do not want to leave. That was my attitude. That was my feeling. I didn't want to leave, but I had to get on that plane and head back home. But so I just want to go into that and say again, it was though it was a sad occasion to, and it's always a sad occasion when you burying a relative or somebody who you love and respect, be they kin or non-kin. But at the same time, so what I'm trying to say is it was bittersweet because at the same time I got a chance to um, reconnect with some kinfolk I hadn't seen in some years, and at the same time got introduced to some kinfolk I had never met. So we're gonna keep in touch, and I'm gonna hold on to this history. This history is mine, and like I said, I own it, and I wear it on my sleeve. So with that, Dr. Soul Brothers is gonna sign off here. You all take care, and until the next time, God bless.